Hello and welcome back, everyone. My name is Deborah Peters, and thank you for joining me today on this episode of the Deborah Peters Show. It's a very interesting time in the world these days, and today we're filming this on the 10th of October. So 10/10, it's a big day energetically, and I hope that you take some time to get out in nature and tune into some of the shifts that are taking place. It'll help you expand your consciousness. And that is what this show is all about. It is about increasing your self-awareness. It's about stepping into your own self-mastery. It's about reclaiming your sovereignty. And it is all about living your life on the leading edge of thought, which is really all about you. It's not about anybody else. It's about taking yourself beyond your current reality, using your imagination and applying it to every area of your life. And there are 5 pillars that we focus on the Deborah Peters Show, and they are health, wealth, relationships, self-expression, and business. So what I like to do is I like to get guests on my show that are experts in contributing to the lives of others in the areas that I've just mentioned to you. And when I find someone as unique as this guest that I have today, I absolutely have to make sure that I get her on and she can share what it is that she's doing, because the world really needs support right now. I think each one of us really needs support as we go through the shifts, the changes, and maybe the old constructs of our lives fall apart and we have to build new ones, and we're not really sure what those are yet. So my guest is from probably one of my most favorite parts of the English countryside. She's from Bath, and her name is Rosie Tomkins. She's a coach, and she works with animals and helps people really start to tune into themselves rather than being distracted by all of our gadgets and the outside world. So Rosie, thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Lovely to be here.
Yeah, and it's exciting. When I saw what you were doing, I'm like, oh my gosh, this totally speaks to the farm girl in me. I absolutely have to have her on as a guest. How long have you been in this business?
So I've been doing this work for probably the last 15 years, but my background is in business. I'm kind of a bit of a serial entrepreneur. So I love kind of creating new ideas and thoughts. And when I came across this work, that was it. I had to bring it to the world. And that's what I've been trying to do ever since.
Well, you're doing a great job. I mean, what you do really kind of speaks to my heart, because that's how I grew up. I grew up on a farm, and people hear me talk about this all the time, but I never get tired of talking about it. So I hope people don't get tired of hearing about it. And living on a farm and growing up with animals, which is your expertise, is really something that transports you in so many different ways, from stress to peace, from being out of balance to healing. I mean, it's just a limitless kind of list. And one of the things that really upsets me, I suppose, in today's world is how far gone we are, how far south we've gone from actually spending time in nature as a way of life. It's we're just so, and I'm generalizing obviously, but we're just so caught up on our devices and whatever that programming is that's coming through whatever media platform that you're giving your energy to, is just, in my opinion, just takes us further and further away from who we are as our spirituality, our connection to God, and our relationship with the earth.
Yeah, and I say it all the time, but people seem to think that we go out into nature, and actually we are nature.
Yeah.
Illusion of separation that we really need to restore. And like you, I've absolutely love the countryside and being in nature, but so many people don't have that opportunity to understand and to experience that. And my view is that it's everywhere. It's outside the window. It's in the sky, the stars, the sun, the moon, the seasons. It's there just outside the door. And I often draw, the analogy of a little spider. People are terrified of spiders. And yet, if you look at what they do, they are the most incredible architects. And they are resilient because you sweep them away and then they go back and rebuild again.
I know.
And wonderful, and
I have some outside my door, and it's like, as soon as I go out the door and start down the step and to get to the sidewalk, I'm on the lookout for them, because I've walked into their sort of like masterpieces of art, I call them, so many times, and I'm just like shooing it off of my body. And the next time I come out the door, they've rebuilt. So yeah, you got to admire that, right?
And that's everywhere in nature. I mean, every animal on the planet is there for a purpose, and they're doing something that keeps them alive, obviously, but we can learn from. And we just need to, kind of wake up to why they're here and what they're doing. And as I say, I'm not a biologist, a zoologist, but I see what happens when people come outside and work, not always with the horses, but certainly in nature, and how it changes them completely, and their perspective on life changes.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, I think everyone should, well, I'm going to have to retract that right after I say it, but that's okay. I'm going to say it to make a point. I think everyone should have a pet. But again, not everyone can care for a pet the way they need to be. So see, I'm contradicting myself. But imagine having like even a kitty cat, maybe a dog is too much responsibility with the walks, etc. But even just a kitty cat. So when you're home, there's, especially if you live alone, there's an interaction, there's an energy exchange, it's a very sort of calming, it pops you into alignment just like that. It takes you from being, I'm stressed out, to being, I'm chill. Life is good. I got this.
And that's the connection piece, isn't it? That again, we think we're separate, and yet when we have that feeling with any animal, it's that, gosh, I'm connected to other living things, and it's a very cathartic kind of experience, isn't it? And I see that all the time. People make stories up. A lot of people don't like horses, for example. A lot of people are frightened of horses, and they come with a story. And then by the end of the session or the program, they're wanting to take one home.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. I remember as a kid, we had horses, and I would go riding all the time. It was my entertainment. We were like 30 some miles from town. So you really didn't have a choice as a kid. You had to get on the bus to get home. And so then once you got there, besides chores, what are you going to do with your time? It was light until 10 o'clock at night in the summer, which I think is pretty similar to the UK.
Yeah.
So, just filling that time, I would ride my horse for hours, and most of the time bareback. I'd just go out to the pasture and throw a piece of baler twine around his neck, or jump on and ride him bareback. And I was like 8, 9, 10, 11, it was just a way of life. So not everyone, you're right, not everyone gets that experience, which is unfortunate to a point, because one of the things I like to remind people of is that your food does not come from a supermarket. It comes from the earth, you know, it is of the earth as we are, to your point. And so there's so much there for us to connect to recharge, to fuel up, to feel more whole. And I'm sure you do that with the programs that you run.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it is that connection piece. They don't know what's going to happen to them because obviously a lot of people don't get access to living things in the way that we've had in our childhood. And it's very moving to see what goes on. And they're surprised that, and it's now proven that, you know, the size of the heart of a horse, we're pulled into their electromagnetic field.
Sure.
So it gives us a sense of calm. We become in the present with them. And it's just gives you a wonderful sense of well-being to be around these incredible animals.
Indeed. You know, there's, I've had that experience with dolphins as well. Yeah. I've had some pretty incredible, like profound experiences with dolphins. And my first experience it was cool. I mean, they were at a theme park and they were, you know, it was a cool experience. It was enough to introduce me to that frequency, that vibration, because it's all vibration, right?
Yeah.
And so then I treated myself to a vacation in the Bahamas where I was able to swim with wild dolphins, and actually did this process there with a couple of professionals, craniosacral work, and we did it in the water with the dolphin, and it was just, yeah, I mean, it changed me. It changed me, and I think that's because of growing up like that, you know, growing up just hanging out with my dog and my kitty cats and my horses, and I had a 4-H steer that I would show at the cattle shows, and everything revolved around the earth and our animals. So then, you know, I moved to the city because I was craving new experiences, and that was great too. But it's all come back now full circle.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel, you know, that I'm a bridge, because the work I do is connecting people in business normally, and obviously leadership in every sense of the word, but leading them back to nature and explaining how this connection is so important to us for our well-being. And that's, you know, what I do every day almost. And it's, as I say, it's an absolute pleasure. And I do it with great gratitude. Never know quite what's going to happen.
Sure.
Because when you work with animals and children, something always comes up. And my job is to find those insights and those perceptions and see what's going on. And also be, you know, almost like a new experience for them that's outside their comfort zone, so they can challenge themselves.
Are you then rescuing horses as well?
So I rescue the horses I work with on the farm are rescue horses.
Okay.
But I do work all over like you do globally, you know, mainly in Europe, and they provide me with horses. So they're not always rescues. But it's just important that they can run free together. Again, I want to kind of look at liberated leadership, and I want to use the examples of what's going on in the herd with the horses to bring into the business environment. So it's really important that the horses can run together, which is rare now because people keep them in stables, as you know.
I know, box stalls.
Yeah, and there's no land. So, you know, we take what we can really. And it's a great privilege to find somewhere where you can work outside and bring this kind of great learning to people. And the way I frame it up, because obviously a lot of people probably listening to this are thinking this might be a little bit woo-woo.
That's all right.
And that's absolutely fine. But when I'm in a boardroom, I can't always be woo-woo. So I use the the way I describe what I do is that, it's a different form of intelligence. And like you say, you're coming home to that. But for a lot of people to try to understand what I'm talking about, I always say, you all know what IQ is. Many of you will know what EQ is. And I'm sure a lot of people on this program will know what SQ is, spiritual intelligence. But not many people have heard about NQ, and that's how I frame up my work. So NQ for me symbolizes natural intelligence, and we all have that natural intelligence within us, but sometimes it's been suppressed over the years. And my kind of drive and my kind of reason for being here and writing the book, etc., is to bring people back to that natural intelligence.
Oh, that's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Something that I've been doing over the last couple, I guess maybe since 2020, and we were pretty severely locked down here when I was in Los Angeles. I needed a way to remind myself who I really am. And that is, a piece of earth and connected to the earth.
Yeah.
So what I started doing, just to remind myself that my thoughts literally do turn into things, is I would buy seed packets.
Brilliant.
And and I would sprout them in my kitchen, and then I would transplant them into something, and then a bigger pot, and then they'd start flowering or producing a fruit or a vegetable. And it was just like, oh yeah, nature, Mother Nature, the spark of life, and I felt like it was very therapeutic. Like it gave me, I don't know how to explain it, it was like a spiritual epiphany. It gave me a reminder, of what we're really made of, and that there's a divinity, and as farmers, we knew that, but I'd been gone from the farm for a long, long time. And when you think about when a farmer plants a crop, let's say they're planting, I don't know, corn, they don't expect or fear or doubt whether corn will come up. They don't worry that it'll be wheat instead. They know, because there's that spark of divinity in that seed, and that is within us all. And of course, animals. People get it wrong when they think that animals are not as smart as we are. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they then, intellectually, I don't think we can prove that they're as smart as us, but I think energetically, I think they're far smarter. And I think we're losing that understanding of energy. Animals have to read energy from a distance because their life depends upon it. So a lot of the work I do, is about, I say that how they pick up information without being able to talk. We talk in terms of communication being 90% non-verbal, and yet, we always concentrate on the 10% verbal. So the work that I do is, bringing them back to understanding that watching and listening to energy gives you a really full picture of what's going on. But we do need to stop and pause and take time to bring that back. And of course, with the horses, they're a prey animal and we're a predator. So it is extraordinary that they want to even be near us. And yet for some reason, horses, despite what happens to them, they seem to want to serve us in some way. And I think that both, in terms of looking at what they do as a herd, but also, as you say, spiritually, we can learn a lot from these beautiful animals.
Yeah, it just really is. It's a profound experience when you connect. There's actually a farm, like not even 10 minutes from where I live, and I live in the city. So I drive out there all the time. They've the owners. It's only well, it's about, I think, a little over 400 acres, and the owners have converted it pretty much for the most part into a wedding venue property.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's, indoor weddings, barns, nice houses outdoor. And then they have a good amount of acres for some horses, and they've got some goats, and there's some kitty cats, running around. And it just, like, the minute I get out of my vehicle and I start walking around, I'm like, oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
This reminds me of what it feels like to be in Mother Nature and just letting that energy transform me and fill me up. And I think what it does is it enables one to pull back from, say, pushing against what we don't want in life.
Mm-hmm.
And the drain on our energy with our devices, because they're absolutely a drain on our energy. They pull from us. I can't think of anything positive that they give us, other than access to information.
Yeah.
But I'm a big champion of get outside, be in nature, and let your inner being give you that information.
It's also the constancy. I think nature is constant. So it gives us kind of a feeling of, again, reassurance.
Sure.
We know that the moon is going to come up and the sun is going to, and the seasons are going to change, and all of those wonderful things. As you say, with the seeds growing on your windowsill, it's that believing that nature is constant, and that makes us feel, as I say, especially at this time, as you were saying, that actually everything's okay and we don't need to worry. It will be okay. And I think that's what people need right now. And it also, for me, I feel very strongly at the moment that we're always looking for validation from our computers, the continual favorite, being liked on Facebook, etc. And actually animals teach us that we need to have this really internal validation rather than the external validation. And that for me is a massive thing for young people, when they realize that they don't need all this external validation, and that they have everything they need inside them, and they are perfect the way they are. And nature's like that. They don't run around worrying about how many likes they've had on Facebook. They just get on with what they're doing and their purpose and their passion and getting food and surviving. And I use that a lot, especially in my book. It's a huge theme for me that we need to move away from external validation into believing in self.
Yeah, self-referral, absolutely. And it's interesting. So I think it was probably in the mid-90s, I was just like full on into a spiritual awakening, and still kind of like wide-eyed about it, like what's happening to me, because you go through a process where nothing fits, but the new stuff hasn't arrived yet, so you're just sort of in this weird space. And I started really kind of studying that concept of self-referral, because there's external validation can be from more than just social media. I remember as a child, getting starved for love, just that wasn't there, wasn't available, and nurturing. So, then trying to be the perfect child so that I could get a sense of being, I'm okay in this family, I'm safe, which never happened. And so then, I think what's going on in the world now with social media platforms and just the way they're all designed, and being an influencer and all of these things that we're supposed to aspire to, really is just an extension of that. It's like
Mhm.
We were looking outside of ourselves for acceptance, approval, praise,
Mhm.
validation, and it takes us further and further away from our spirit.
Yeah. And I always draw the people's attention to I don't know whether you've ever come across the naked mole rat. He's an ugly little chap, amazing creature. Has no hair, lives underground in the dark, great big teeth outside the body. So he's not what we would say was traditionally handsome.
Yeah.
But they are they are loved by each other. They found, that diversity, that difference. Naked mole rats love naked mole rats. And
That's
they have
funny.
incredible qualities. They live till they're 30 years old. They really got longevity, and they're immune to cancer. So again, the
Wow.
learning that we can have from these, what we probably perceive as ugly little creatures, is the value that they bring to the world if we can tap into it. And that's my view, is that we discard things, we make judgments very quickly
Yeah.
about what's good and what's beautiful and what's not so beautiful. And nature teaches us that all the diverse things in the world, everybody fits in, color, creed, whatever it is, there is someone out there for you. We're all connected, and we'll find our tribe, and we will be okay. And that gives me again a sense of hope,
Yeah.
that we can learn from that.
Yeah, indeed. It's interesting you say about the visual, because I was preparing my curriculum for a leadership and management retreat I'm doing on Thursday. And, I'm always talking about and presenting material on how our senses control our experiences. And if we really want to create a new reality, we have to stop giving so much focus to what is, and we have to train ourselves to focus on what we're creating, which can be very hard because society is made up of triggering our senses, right?
Yeah.
So what I found when I was doing some deeper research is that there's a point in the womb where the child, the baby, the fetus starts to develop their senses. And I would have always assumed that sight was something that was developed. It's actually hearing that is developed first. So
Yeah.
the fetus is tuning into vibration
Yeah.
and the sounds that are coming through the mother's body prior to any other sense being awakened. And so I think where society has it all wrong, which might be a blessing, is that everything, especially in America, everything is just massive visual, and I've noticed this from traveling around the world. Whenever I come back home, the billboards are like 10 times bigger than they are in any other country. And so we have a real sort of societal propensity toward emphasis on the visual and the acceptance of others through a particular visual status quo that is purely perception. But as it turns out, it's really our hearing, the vibration of sound,
Yeah.
that is impacting us way sooner and to a greater effect than anything we see. I think it's, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. And I agree with you totally, but also the sense of smell. So
Right.
often when I'm doing like yourself, I'm facilitating a group, I will spray something in the room, because it hits the brain quickest. A smell
Yeah.
will hit the brain faster than anything else.
Yeah.
And again, we seem to have removed that. We are losing our sense of smell because we're sanitizing everything. We're using perfumes, and animals rely so heavily on their sense of smell. It's such an important, attribute for them. And yet we as humans, who are animals, we're just a different species, are dumbing it down, which seems, dangerous in the extreme.
Well, it furthers our disconnect.
Yeah. Yeah.
The more when you think of the word nature and natural, the more natural we can be, then the more dialed in we can be to our true nature. And so there's really something here. I was going to say there's something missing, but I don't, I want to stay away from the negative. So I really think that there's something here that we can, and you are already using through your programs to remind people and to reintroduce them to the true nature of who they are.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that, right? And that in and of itself, that's the breakthrough. Like, that's the healing.
Yeah, it is.
That's
Causes,
going from survivor to thriver.
Yeah. And that's what causes the emotion. So there is a lot of emotion on my courses because exactly that process is going on. And I think, again, that this connection with predator and prey, that when we're working with the horses, there's something that aligns to that as well.
Yeah.
That the two are coming together and that we can live in harmony, even though we have different needs and, definitions of what we think life is. But we definitely can live in harmony and we can learn from them the way they do in a herd. And, I often, the first part of the day is often just looking at the herd and how they interact. And people have an assumption about leadership. And I don't know whether your viewers will know this, but in a herd of horses, there's an alpha male and an alpha female. And when I ask them, where do you think the alpha male is, they always say at the front. And of course, in a herd of horses, the alpha female is always the lead mare, and she leads the group, as you know, from being on a farm. So again, their assumption of leadership always being, at the front, or being male, or being the biggest, or being strongest, or being, it kind of throws it up in the air, and people have to assess it. So it's almost like sometimes it's like a disruptive experience for them to see things in a very different way.
Well, that's how we've been programmed for eons. And I'm going to blame that on St. Paul. If you look in the biblical sense, there was a point in time where St. Paul declared that it was the male was the head and the woman was the lesser of the two. And that got completely misconstrued and frankly bastardized by a lot of organized religion to mean that the man in the relationship was the head and the woman was less than. But what he really meant was it was the relationship between the subconscious and the conscious. Whereas, the subconscious really is when you tell it what you want and then you surrender to it, it will go about bringing it to you. It just is like what's you're seeking is seeking you. And that's what you're describing. And so that's where we've been, I believe, like erroneously, it's a false premise. We've been erroneously programmed to believe that it's a male female hierarchy in the family.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It has nothing to do with that. It's the dynamic of creating reality through vibration that takes place between the relationship of the conscious and the subconscious mind.
Yeah.
And so it's no wonder that they're like, oh, it has to be the male, the bigger, stronger, because that's what we've been programmed to believe.
Yeah, and it's also the contribution that everyone makes to the good of the whole. So again, this, collaborative leadership is what I like. I like rotational leadership and I like collaborative leadership because it takes away the ego and animals don't have ego.
No.
So when they work with the horses, I always say, you know, the horse doesn't care what car you drive, how much money you've got in the bank, whether you're a celebrity or not. The horses are not going to take any notice at all. They want to see you as you are, and they mirror what you bring. So, you know, you have to be congruent with who you are when you work with animals, because they know you can't fake it.
Yeah, 100%.
And so that's the magic of the work, because, you know, where else can you go? You can't do this kind of work in a classroom, because you can't, you know, it's impossible. You need something to reflect back exactly how you're coming across. And it's kind of, it brings apart an honest conversation rather than, you know, trying to tell people, oh, well, I'm this kind of leader. You know what the answers are, but, you know, you're faking it. Rather than you stepping up and celebrating who you are and the strengths that you bring. And that's to say what animals do in a herd. You know, I don't think they have ego. I think they have roles, and that they rotate them depending on what's appropriate. So, you know, again, if a herd of horses is being chased by a coyote on the prairie, it needs the alpha male to step up with his strength and his ability in order to fight. But when it's something else, like the direction the herd should run in, or where water is, then that female who's, you know, got all the knowledge and the experience of a lifetime, she's the matriarch, and she needs to be, and she is listened to. And so it really throws up all sorts of, as you say, conceptions that we've learned about what leadership should be, or self-leadership should be.
Yeah, very, very true. And the thing about that is, here's another analogy is geese, Canada geese. You know, they always fly in a V formation, and that lead goose takes on the headwinds. Like, that's a lot of work. So there's a constant rotation going on, and there's, you know, they move out of the way, and another goose comes to the front, and they are able to keep the entire flock, you know, moving to their destination with what appears to be great ease. And so there's no like, I'm more important than you because I have this title, or I have this role that gives me this much authority. And I can tell you, from 20 some years of being an advisor to CEOs, most people in high levels of responsibility and positions of authority are just figuring it out every single day, like the rest of us. And they don't necessarily know everything. And so we have to stop putting them on that pedestal and just let them be human beings that are doing their best, assuming they are. Right?
And again, you know, when they come work in nature, the horses don't know that they're the CEO. And
I know.
So they, you know, they challenge them in different ways. And again, that's good. You know, CEOs have to be challenged, and sometimes you can't do that in the environment. But once you're out, as I say, in nature, whatever turns up is an insight. And that person goes home with their own personal insight, not something someone else has told them, but something that they have actually seen and felt and smelled, all of those things. And that's the beauty of it. They go away with their aha moments, you know, their own personal aha moments. And I just, that's what, as I say, brings me alive. That's what I love doing, to see people really valuing themselves and celebrating their strengths, and regaining their confidence in their own ability to lead the lives they want, not 100%. To be told, you know, that
this is who you should be, and this is how you should behave, and this is how you should look. And I always get a kick out of these, you know, like, let's say you're like scrolling through YouTube, and you've got all these channels, like, this is how you should do your hair after 50, or this is how you should, the clothes you should wear after 40, or, you know, it's just like, please, all of these little cookie cutter stereotypes that just keep that groupthink going with. That's why I created this show. I just am like, I'm so over groupthink. I'm like, do you have an opinion? Do you have a take on what it is that you would like to do with your life? And what kinds of experiences would you like to have? When I have a client that says to me, I want to make a change, but I don't know what that is. I don't know what I should do. I'm like, well, maybe you should figure out how you want to feel.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Start there.
What brings you joy? It goes back to the energy piece again, doesn't it? If you're in joy because your energy changes. If you're on the right track because you feel differently. And all you have to do is follow that energy and see what brings you joy. And it can be, go back to your childhood, as we've talked about, the beauty of being able to, run in a field of wildflowers, anything, what brings you joy, and remember it and bring it into your life now, if it's not there already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Don't you think that, and this is not to take away from your programs, because I think they're absolutely essential. But if people are paying attention, these mirrors of how they're running their energy is everywhere in your life.
Yeah. But people aren't aware of how they come across to others. They have
so checked out, right?
Yeah.
So checked out.
Yeah.
And so busy thinking about what they're gonna say next to prove their point, to defend their limitations, to justify why their life is the way it is, to be able to ask a question of themselves, like, what's this showing me? I had to teach myself that. Nobody taught me that. I had to teach that to myself. And I run that every day. I'm like, okay, let's say a door closes that you've worked to open, you've put a focus on, and then the door closes, and it's like, okay, what is this showing me? What's the guidance here? Instead of making it wrong, which took some work to get out of the wrongness of things, and to actually get to a place of feeling more resourceful, that I could actually ask myself an open-ended question that might spark some new interest. And I just think it's just, I don't know, it's a lot of things. It's the nature of society. It's the speed of our lives. It's our disconnection from our true nature. It's a lot of things.
It's also a lot to do with judgment. We're very aware of being judged by others. And again, that's part of the validation process, isn't it? And once you're sure who you are, you no longer fear judgment. You really don't care. You have no worries or cares about whether someone's going to judge you.
I know.
It's a very difficult place to get to. We all like to be loved, as but as I say, I always find my strength from animals, from the fact that they couldn't give a monkey. They've got no perception of judgment. And I think us as human animals, we are really shackled with this self-judgment and this fear of it. And again, I'd like to try my best to release that in people, and to make them so less judged.
That in and of itself would be a complete 180 in someone's life. Yeah, good job, good work. How do people find you?
Okay, so my book's coming out shortly. I'll tell you about that in a minute, but my website is nstinctive.com.
Okay.
So n-stinctive, stinctive.com. And my book, which I'd be delighted if any of you would like to pre-order, is coming out on the 31st of October. And it's called Let Nature Be Your Compass, by myself, Rosie Tomkins. It's on Amazon now, if anyone would like to pre-order. And yeah, it's a way to go. It's coming up.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Good for you, Rosie. I can see that this is like your soul's calling for you.
Oh yeah, definitely. I've done all sorts of things in my life, but this is I'm definitely on purpose with this one.
Good for you. Yeah, and you get to live on a nice acreage and rescue horses, and
Yeah.
gosh, what a gift.
And I hope that in there I'm rescuing people too, and
And
you know,
yourself.
and myself, yeah, and bringing
Yeah.
joy. And hopefully it's my, we all need to make a difference, and this is my way of doing it. And I feel very privileged to be able to work with these magnificent creatures and to share my work with others.
Well, it was obviously, I'm not going to say necessarily a dream, but it certainly is a very strong intention that you followed through on, and really pulled out the creator side of you and put it to work, and let it do for you, what you were asking for. And that in and of itself, most people stop that process. They halt that process. They sabotage it. And you just kept going. God bless you.
I can't really take all the credit for that. I've got to say that I do think that people come into your life for a reason. And as you were saying, there's this incredible, if you keep the door open and you say, like you were saying earlier, you look at it and say, why is this happening? And I happen to meet, and it's in my book, How I Started This Work, an incredible woman who, asked me if I would like to come on and see what she was doing with horses. And I thought she was bonkers at the time, I've got to say. I don't know whether bonkers is an American word or not.
Yes, you can use it 100%.
And I thought, there I was in my city clothes and my business acumen. And as I say, I said, okay, I'd be happy to come and work with a horse, thinking I don't think this is going to work in any way, shape or form. And oh my goodness, what I learned in that brief session about myself and about the way I lead my life and about the ways, other people see me. It was incredible. And that's why I decided to kind of follow her path and make this happen. And that story is in the book. And as I say, many stories that they're all true about my mistakes I've made in this work and the successes I've had. But all of it, as I say, would not be possible without working with nature and animals. And they're the real masters of this work. I always say that they're the masters of energy.
They are. We can learn a lot from that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I remember, even as a kid, like if I was in a bad mood for something, I don't know, maybe I got in trouble, I'd have to go chase my horse to catch it. When I was in a good, happy place, my horse just came to me, and it was like, what have I done wrong? But it was that constant mirror, and so is life, really, paying attention.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being here. I could just talk with you all day long.
Yeah, I think we've got a lot in common.
We do, and you're in the UK, and here I am in the US. So I definitely will get over and come see you. I can't wait. I want to.
Okay. Well, if I come over to America to promote my book, I would love to stay in touch.
Yeah, give me a holler. I'll find a place with some high tea, and we'll go and have a good chat.
Yeah, and also because of your experiences with horses, I'd love to show you the way I work. That would be amazing too.
I'd love to see that. Yeah. Well, thank you for being here. I just, you're a gem, and I want to encourage all my viewers to reach out to Rosie and, find out what her next program is. Definitely pre-order her book, support her in her work, and tell everyone, tell everyone. Yeah, you're welcome. So thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you for liking, subscribing, commenting. That really helps build the channel way more than you realize. And let me know what your thoughts are on this episode and how it's touched your heart, and if it's made you kind of sort of rethink the possibilities for your life. And as the world continues to go through the the shifts that we're going through, just please, ladies and gentlemen, remember, stay aligned, stay alert, and stay awake. And I will talk to you guys real soon.